Hey traders, this is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day, end of week recap for Friday, October 23rd. So we'll talk about the theme of the day, and then we'll get to the week's performance, and we'll kind of make this a quicker video. I've done some longer videos this week. You can access them on my YouTube channel, and you can kind of get my point of view for the week, and so on and so forth. So, ultimately, I think this is one of those things where just a good week to kind of get through at this point. We know that we've got all these events kind of stacked up, right? Both fundamental and like I guess I don't know, maybe what's the right term? Interior, exterior events, I guess, going on. I don't know if that's right, but you kind of know what I mean. There's this a little bit uncertainty of election, again, which everybody knows. You have the stimulus deal where they continue to play headline ping pong back and forth. It's at this point nauseating. And then you also have, of course, one of the big fundamental things going on, which is earnings, which generally the market is a bit more choppy around that time. There's a lot of names that are reporting, and the market really is adjusting expectations as well as realizing where the winners and losers are in this market, and brokers are adjusting their price targets and ratings and so forth, which can provide sometimes a short-term move. So there's a lot going on, and it's going to be like this. It is the 23rd, so you can kind of count down the days. Now again, I'm more of a price trend follower, so I really just try to kind of weed out the noise, but it is what it is. It's kind of it's difficult to do that completely. I know some people do try to do that, but this kind of this, I think the price action for this week, when you look at the averages, which I'm going to bring up the performance in just a week, it's exactly spot on with what you would kind of think going into a week like this. So I know price and trend, I'm fully, following that, and that kind of gives me, a tendency and places where I want to basically add risk, and understand the overall trend. But it doesn't. But obviously, some exterior things outside of that are going to help a little bit too, right? And I think that was fully met our expectations for the week. It was something that we went over a couple times in the trading room through the Q&A sessions that we have. I always give a kind of my thoughts on the market every time we do one of those Q&A sessions in the beginning of that. And then of course, our member weekend video, which is basically what, I said. And the other thing that we noticed too at the beginning of the week and as the week rolled on, there wasn't a ton of setups that were jumping off the page to me. As we get to the end of the week, right, and we've seen kind of this consistent move down through the week, even though that wasn't by any means, a large magnitude. It was a little bit of just a slow grind lower. As we kind of got to the end of the week, you start to see a bit more setups materialize, right? That's what happens, I think, kind of where we got to a couple weeks ago, which is a lot of things had broken out and were a little bit overbought. They need to digest a little bit to kind of bring that next round, hopefully, of breakouts and so forth. So it's all part of the cycle too, and the times when the opportunities are not as good as what we saw the previous couple weeks, you try as best you can to kind of sit on your hands and make some adjustments and trade a little bit lighter. So that said, let's get into today's price action. Right, I would call it back and forth price action. But it did give some trading opportunities. So I'll go over the index charts. Also, what was notable was bonds rallied back today. Again, it's not just bonds, but it's what does bonds affect? Well, they affect the home builders. They affect, to some extent, tech companies, right? Again, directly and indirectly, right? Not so. I don't think like this little move in bonds, what we've seen over the last 2 weeks, is really going to put that much of a stress on tech companies, but traders and investors see what's going on, and they make decisions based on what they think is going to happen. So, I think that was why we started to see some things that got beaten up a little bit this week, like the home builders, which were the best performing group this week, today, up 2.17%. Okay, so let me get into the indices, and then we'll go over this week's performance too. But let's start with the daily chart, right? So I've gone over a couple different levels with you guys over the last week, right? We've talked about this 3-4-21. Bottom line, if you're just looking at the daily chart, this thing held, right? How many times did it hold this week? Which is a good sign. One, first of all, we almost touched it here on this hammer bar, but I won't count that one. But this week, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then, off of today's lows, we resolved ourselves a little bit higher. So it does look like this is, more of a traditional type pullback, right? And again, our market webs indicator doing an exceptional job. I've gotten a couple questions about this. I apologize, I haven't answered anybody's YouTube questions. The market webs is an indicator that we developed. One of my colleagues has done the development of this over the last 4 years. So I can't just forward that to anybody. This is our proprietary indicator. So we do sell it to members, right? So members can purchase that. But again, you have to be a Tribeca Trade Group member, right? This is not something I can just forward to you. So I received like 5 questions about it. Again, I don't advertise it on the website. You could see what it is on the website, but you can't purchase it. You have to actually be a member and get the purchase link through me once you're a member. So if you have any questions about that, you can email me. But this is our own home product, and quite honestly, it's very good, and I don't want to give it to everybody currently. So that's how it goes. So that is the 3-4. Right around 34.20. Again, that'll be the level to watch. So even though this looks like a pretty nice textbook pullback, and we're starting to kind of resolve and bounce here, it doesn't mean that we can't get out of this pattern, right? That for me, I'm thinking that we kind of bounce from here. But we'll see. We've got all those things to kind of concentrate for the next week, in terms of events that can make it a choppy week. 1 hour chart. Right, you heard me talk a lot about this virgin point of control down here. That was both on the 5-minute and on the 1 hour time frame. We did not take that out. So, do we have to worry about this right now? Well, we'll see where we start the week next week. If we start here, you could see this is going to be the new value area for next week. Again, this is based on, right? This value area is based on this week's price action. So you could see how tight the price action was, and here's going to be our significant levels. So if we start above the week, right, then certainly we don't have to worry about this. Only if we start the week below this 3-4-24 level, then that becomes active, right? But even if we start the week inside value, we don't have to worry about that. Only if we break the bottom of value, right? So and then the other thing to kind of notice here that I really was adamant about on Monday, which took place, was that we broke the short-term uptrend, right? When we broke through both the bottom of value and the 200-day moving average. And it's nice that I honestly did not think that we would rally into value today, but we're kind of set up for it next week. It's a very easy thing. It's a very easy hurdle to get back over this big white line here, which is the 200 period moving average, which again is going to line up very closely with next week's top value. So that should make for an interesting week next week. All right. That's the S&P. Again, if we look at today's price action, again, kind of straight down for the first couple of hours. Again, not like hard down, right? But you could see the price action right from the open. So, there are still a lot of big investors, right? The institutions are obviously still making adjustments. If you look at the Qs got hit a little harder, like on the first go of it. There was again some choppiness right around this bottom of value. There were some headlines that came out. There was headlines about COVID picking up in Europe, which is, it's quite scary, I would say, to hear how many cases are going up by the thousands in places like France and Germany, and I think in England as well too, but not. I don't think as much as Spain. Is it Spain too? Definitely France. I think it's France and Italy. Sorry, it's been a long week. All right, let's see if Italy reports jump in new daily virus cases to record 19,143. And France reports, yeah, so that's what it is. See, I figured it out. France reports record 42,000 new coronavirus cases in the last 24 hours. That's a lot. That's a lot. So I'm not going to go into that. I know for some reason this gets politicized, whatever the word is, about cases. I think nobody wants this. Nobody wants to get this thing. What scares me is the side effects. If you do make a full recovery from this, some people really get some nasty side effects from this. So anyway, I'll move on. But look at where the Qs finished for the day. So they did that sell off. We held in there at the bottom of value, and we bounced. So and then if I think the price action was even more constructive once we look at some single names in here too. So single names, I'll start with this one. Snap, just unbelievable, right? Up another 11%, and this is taking some other names within the group. I think this Facebook looks really interesting for next week, right? This did have a real nice close. I'm on the 1 hour bar, but it did close above value too, right? So it's going to be, like I said, I'm using the same word here, but it's going to be an interesting week next week. You've got Facebook, Amazon, Google, all reporting the same day, which I think is on Thursday of next week. And you also have Apple reporting. I'll have to check what day Apple reports. Let's see. Is it this? I hope it's not the same day. They did this last quarter too. Apple is the 29th. So yes, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, and Google all report the same day. So that'll be on the 29th. So they're stacking it up. So again, that'll be a fun day. So, but I think this Facebook looks out of the group looks most constructive, and I think it's kind of it could rally into that earnings report given the tailwind that Snap gave, right? And of course, Pins did very well this week. Pins finished on a 52-week high, so very, very strong. These were two of the names that were in our weekend watch list, right? So we have this watch list program at TTG. You can get, if you're a member of the Tribeca Trade Group, or if you're not, you can, of course, you could sign up here. All right, so you just go to my profile and click on the link here, and you can sign up to be a trader. But we put out our watch list and macro video on Sunday. To get everybody ready for the trading week. And what I've been doing, Rich, if you've been watching my videos for a while, but I go ahead and buy the watch list on Monday morning, right? I do this in an account called M1 Finance, and I hold SPY over the weekend, and then I buy the watch list on Monday morning and hold it throughout the week. And then their windows are either you can trade on the open, or you can trade at 3 o'clock. If you pay their annual fee, you get the two windows. If not, it's free, and I think you just get the 9:30 window. But regardless, I buy this on Monday morning, hold it for the week. Then on Friday, 3 o'clock, I substitute back into SPY for the weekend. I go through my research and so forth, and send out the watch list to members, as well as a video talking about the setups, and you could see what our performance was for the week. So this S&P was down 0.5% for the week. and our watch list was up 3.2%. Now, did I get lucky with a little bit lucky with this? Yeah, it's rare that a name goes up 50%. Pins also was up 18%, but these are the names I knew that they obviously were going to report. But I just thought that there was good risk to reward situation in here. A couple of the other names, not every name did very well on this watch list. Names like Lulu. I did put in a couple names that I thought looked pretty good coming into the week in the biotech space or healthcare space, and they did not have a good week. All right, so we'll try to be a little bit more consistent next week for that. Even Chipotle, which I made a small weight in this thing, finished down 1%, even though it had a nice day today. All right, guys. So that's a little bit about our weekend watch list program. Again, you have to be a member for that. So go ahead and sign up if you haven't already. And and then I'll provide obviously updates so that that's one of the things that we do. Of course, I also have my trading account that I talk about the trades in every video at the end of the day. So we'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. But ultimately, a couple of trades that I was talking about, the banks and so forth, they did very well. I got out of my KRE trade that I put on 380, paid 230. I had a little bit of a Wells Fargo Lotto trade on. So, I was participating in this bank move. I hit my second target in USB, kind of forced that at the end of the day. And, a couple of things got chopped up in today. I tried, NVIDIA is one of my favorite names to play in the semi space. It's actually looking pretty decent here, right? It did make the turn. But today it was crazy choppy, right? And sometimes I set my stop prices a little bit too tight, right? So I got stopped on here. I re-added here. I did take one target, which was smart. I said 542 would be my first target. I'm targeting 542, so I did get that, and then it was downhill from there. And sometimes you don't go back in when you get whipsawed a bit. But once it retook that value area and shook me out, it had a pretty good day. Closed at 543. Again, not that big of a deal. It traded in a tight range, even though it resolved itself higher. A couple other trades that I'm looking at. So now that software has been a little bit washed out, I like the service now. I think I tweeted out that chart. Again, it's a little bit of a slower mover, but I like the consistency and I like the trend going on here. I like the hammer bar and the 20-day moving average. So a lot that I like about this chart. Little, small dip. I think pretty decent relative performance. Twilio had a nice day too. That was another name that we were talking about. Reports next week, but they already came out with guidance. But look at the bar today, up 4%. So super, super strong. Let me give you just round this out with this week's performance overall for the market. Like I said, SPY finished down 0.5%. The Dow finished down a little bit lower than that. Small caps, although small caps actually outperformed this today. They were all over the place today. So let's look at that chart really quick too. Probably the last chart that we look at. But look at this thing resolve itself higher. Note there is a version point of control up at 167.51. That comes all the way back from this value area, the one back in March, which was based on February's price activity. So that's it for this, right? By the way, how crazy was that takeout, right? Right? And then of course these two down here were taken out too on the downside. But yeah, this could see a rally up to 117.51, and on the weekly chart, we are now above value too, which we've been holding above there. So small caps, could continue to run a little bit. All right, and let me get back to the performance for the week. Bonds, which I've talked about quite a bit, they were down with 2.1%. International areas performed pretty well. I talked a little bit this week about copper and emerging markets. That was one of the, I think it might have been one of the charts that we sent out. Maybe it was just in the room. And Q's underperformed. They were up like 4 weeks in a row, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. So that breaks the streak for them, down 1.3%. Performance in sectors, you could see that the regional banks, regional banks were up 8% this week, caught some of that move quite nicely. Also energy, so it was a very big value week. And then, of course, what we've been talking about as well, when interest rates go up, it's good for the banks, bad for the home builders. Very much so, down 4.7%. Solar cooled off, down 3%. A well-needed rest, I think, for that group. Tech underperformed for the week. Biotech underperformed for the week. Again, they did quite fine today, but overall they were down. And then, of course, on the left side, you got also metals and mining, steel. So again, I mean, these are a lot of value areas, and we talked a lot about that in yesterday's video. A lot of emerging markets outperformed this week. Philippines, Chile, South Africa. What else is in there? Brazil was up 3%. So again, Indonesia, South Korea, China, a lot of emerging markets did pretty well. And then on the right side there, on the bottom, you could see that Europe underperformed this week. Germany, as well as a couple of those European ETFs are in there. All right, guys, so that's it for today's video. Enjoy your weekend. Have a great weekend. Make sure that you relax, get some exercise in, maybe a little bit of pumpkin picking or apple picking. And as I've been joking around this week, a couple of days were better to do that than try to trade with some of this chop. But if you had a decent week, congratulations. I'll see you guys on Monday.